Turn around now. Well, we're waiting for you. We're waiting for you at the beginning and at the end. Okay. So the classroom looks chaotic. Can we do 2 rows? Siri and Avila find the place in the 2 rows. And whoever Jackie is, pick it out so someone can see. That looks so much better. We will do 2 rows from now on because the class seems to be kind of small. Okay, so what you guess? You gave a PDF, but in the wrong place. Yeah, in the folder called Reading Assignments. Huh? I don't know. You have to drag it maybe. Because you end up in the drive in general. I mean, it's fine. I graded it, but it's better if you're like making my drive messy. And why didn't you email me? Why didn't you put it in the drive?
I couldn't open it for some reason.
You can open the drive.
Yeah, I don't know why.
If you stay after class, we'll look at it a little bit to make sure you've never been able to open it.
I've been the last time I opened it.
Oh,
but I just want to do it on my phone.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Good. That's it. I think that's all I wanted to say. Yes. All right. Let's get started. I want to start with a question someone asked me last time. This is you, obviously. So this is an important question, which I would suggest to answer that question. It's not. I don't think I assigned it, but it's on the last pages called "On the Supposed Right to Lie." This is the problem, right? Remember how Kant is saying lying is always bad, no matter what, right? And I think we mentioned briefly the example of what if, some Nazis come to your door and you're hiding some Jews, and are you going to lie or are you going to, right? And we discussed that a little bit. And actually, I read it today, I reread it today. And somebody asked him exactly the same question, even though it's the 18th century, right? And it's a French philosopher who's reading Kant, right? And is responding. And he says exactly this. He says, let me read it here to you. So he's talking about Kant, and he says, the philosopher goes as far as to assert that it would be a crime to tell a lie to a murderer who asked whether our friend who is being pursued by the murderer had taken refuge in our house. So that's exactly the same situation, right? And then Kant will respond in a way that is somewhat unsatisfactory, right? But what we need to always try to do with philosophers, of course, philosophers are fallible, but their thought, I think, is onto something, always, for me. So even a philosopher has some flaws, like some philosophers are racist, some philosophers are anti-Semitic, some philosophers are sexist, but their philosophy, I'm one of those people who says that there's still something worth exploring, right? There's still a movement of thought that is going somewhere, and we have to kind of sometimes go beyond the philosopher, right, in order to make sense of him. So I'm doing that a little bit in this class, trying to always push a little beyond so you can see what he's trying to do, right? So I'm going to start to answer this question a little bit with one answer, and then today we're going to go into a different way to answer that question, which might make things clearer for some of you. So first way I would answer that is that for Kant, it's very important that morality be absolute, independent of the world, right? And that it belong to another kingdom, to the noumenal versus the phenomenal, right? In that sense, he's a Platonist, right? Plato also mentions, right, that this world and Greek thought in general, right, this world cannot contain the good, right? The good is outside. It's glimpsed in this world, but it's situated outside. So I was thinking, trying to ponder, why is it so important for Kant that morality be absolute from circumstances, from life, right? Because that's what he's saying. When you make a decision, it should be independent of the results. So even if you cause indirect harm by your decision should not depend on consequences, should not depend on life, should not depend on what's around you. It should be an independent decision, in other words, completely free. We're going to talk about this freedom in the next section, right? So one of the reasons I was, as I was reading today's chapter, I think, is the belief that Kant has that nothing in this world has any, this world is not a moral world. In other words, when you look at the way we interact, even nature, right? Everything is corrupted. I'll give you an example, which I give usually when I talk about Kant, and it's kind of a gruesome example, so forgive me, but it's really, really, it drives the point home. So this was when I was like in 6th grade or something, and I had a really, really shitty day at school that day, and I was just coming home feeling just, you know how it is when you come, you know, in middle school, how messed up it is. So you come home and you're all filthy from the day. And I came home, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna watch, you know, the Discovery Channel. You know the Discovery Channel? It's about animals and stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna watch that. It's gonna purify me, you know, of the day. I'm just gonna watch these animals, you know, frolic, whatever. So I turn on, and it's a show about seals. You know what seals are, right? These kind of shiny things that are in the North Pole. Anyways, so I was looking, and there was a little baby seal, right? And there was a papa seal. And I'm like, oh, that's so cute, you know? And then I start to see the papa seal do things to the baby seal. And I was like, what is happening? And then the commentary, and it was all too real, that what happens in those lands, in those regions, is when there's not enough females, the fathers go with the babies. And I was like, what? You know, it's even more filthy, right? When I came back from, I was trying to purify myself and watch nature, right? It's supposed to purify me, and it was even worse, right? So this is kind of what Kant is saying. Wherever you look, there is corruption. Even nature, even animals, the most innocent animals in the North Pole who've never seen human beings, right? They're gonna do stuff like that. So that's what he's saying. Morality, we could not have learned it from here. There is nothing in this world that could have taught us anything about being selfless or good or whatever. And so that's why he for him, therefore, any moral, and yet we have this moral sense, right? He's aware of that. We all know what we ought to do beyond the is. How do we know this? Possibly, since the is, the phenomenal, is so corrupt, we must therefore necessarily be tapping into an absolute dimension, a dimension outside of reality, right? And so that's why he insists morality is outside. And whatever, when we make a moral choice, we cannot sink that choice to the level of calculations on the worldly level, because inevitably this is pushing us back into the selfish realm. Does that make sense? Why it's so important for him to be abstract? A lot of you are complaining, he's too abstract. Yes, he has to be, because here there is nothing. You have to abstract in order to have a sense of what is the right thing to do. You have to rise above the material realm, the world as it is, in order to have any sense of morality. That part I agree with, right? That you cannot learn it from the world. You have to rise above and connect to something deeper in order to, or be connecting to something deeper in order to act differently. Am I making sense? So this is hopefully going to explain why it's so important for him to be abstract. Now, what's interesting, I'm going to flip it on you now. Right. What we're going to read today is we're going to see how deeply concrete Kant is. And this is going to be very new. We're going to see where the good is actually localized for Kant is going to be quite shocking. Right? We're going to talk about the good today. We're going to figure it out. We know from last time what the good is not, but today we have to figure out what it is. What is really guiding our moral actions? What is that thing, that pole, right, that is guiding our moral actions? So make sure you write this down, right? That the importance for Kant to be abstract. You know why? Because nothing in this world can tell us. We have to tap into something deeper, right? And that's why it's so important for him to constantly elevate, never look at the world for any type of feedback on how we should act, because inevitably this will drag us back into the is, which is not moral, right? So he wants us to constantly rise above, elevate above the is into the ought. So he has to be abstract, but today what we're going to learn, and that's what you write down in anticipation of what we're going to do, we're going to see how deeply concrete Kant is. And remember, right, last time we learned what the good is not, which is happiness. Today we'll learn what the good is. Remember, the good is that pole which orients our actions, right? We are acting towards the good. So, and we're going to see that the good is found in very strange places. We're going to be shocked at where we find this good. Okay, so let's get into the text. Any questions before I say anything or clarification about anything I said? Okay, good. All right. So first thing we're going to talk about briefly is morality and prudence, and then we'll talk about respect and the good. Okay, that's the two titles for today. So morality and prudence. Prudence, P-R-U-D-E-N-C-E, and then the respect and the good. Okay, so this should clarify a lot for us. This section, morality and prudence, should clarify a lot the mess we have gotten in the postmodern era with regards to moral relativism, right? In our age, right, most of you are thinking, what's right for me, not necessarily for you, and I tolerate that you think this is right, but for me this is right, and we think this is moral relativism. Today we're going to understand it's not, right? For Kant, there is no moral relativism. We're going to understand why. So it's again, we're hit in our sensibilities, right, by this kind of very kind of a strictness of Kant, but actually it makes a lot of sense. So let's look at this passage on page 20. I'm on page 20. I'm going to read the big first paragraph in a bit. First, I'll summarize. First thing he's going to reiterate is that morality cannot be drawn from experience, right? Again, this idea that the world is inherently corrupt. Just watch the Discovery Channel if you have doubts, right? Everywhere it's corrupt. We cannot learn from the world how to act. The reason we know is that part of us, we have dual citizenship. That's how we know what is the ought, right? We have dual citizenship. We're connecting to a deeper layer of reality called the noumenal, right? Noumenal versus phenomenal, which we talked about. Okay, so he says, when it comes to morality, no experience is helpful. No experience is necessary, right? Only connection to oneself, absolute independence from the world, and that's how we can make our moral decisions. And we'll see how in a second. But then he talks about prudence, and this is interesting. This will help us a lot. Prudence is actually the part in us which is interested in the consequences of our actions, right? So when we make a decision, we're like, okay, what will be the consequence of this? Is this going to be a consequence which favors my survival, which favors my happiness? And by the way, can also be prudence is also for others. Will my actions favor their survival? Will my actions favor their happiness, right? So anytime you're thinking about survival or happiness or welfare, whether it's you or the other, right? You don't have to be a jerk, right, to be prudent. It's also for others, right? You're being prudent. So it's a kind of wisdom, right? Which you will be thinking through what's the best course of action to help this person survive or to help me survive. That's prudence. And that's where some of us put morality, right? But for Kant, morality has nothing to do with life. You should be willing to die for morality, right? That's where he is. But when it comes to life and to happiness, whether me or others, that's where prudence kicks in. And prudence is a faculty, or it's an activity of instinct, right? You see how instinct is not so degraded for Kant. It's pretty, instinct can help you save those Jews that are hiding in your, that's instinct. People knock on your door, they need to be saved. Immediately prudence is going to see what is the best course of action for me to save this person and keep them out of the way, and whatever I will do, right? That is what instinct will prescribe. Or how can I also shield myself? Sometimes instinct is selfish, right? But instinct is usually thinking happiness, welfare, survival, and that's prudence, right? And so prudence, of course, has to do with consequences, unlike morality, right? You're looking at what will be the result. You're not thinking of, I'm just going to do this because it's the right thing to do no matter what happens, right? That's morality. Here you're going to be like, let me see. If I do this, then this, then this, then that, then this, okay, I better take this course, right? So it has everything to do with consequences. It is based on experience, right? It is what Kant calls a posteriori, and then P-O-S-T-E-R-I-O-R-I, a posteriori, meaning I am learning prudence from experience. In other words, the more I live, the more I can see, oh, this is good for me, this is bad for me, right? You experience you make a few mistakes, you become prudent, right? This I shouldn't do, this I can do. And you can tell others, this you shouldn't do, this you can do. This is not morality, this is wisdom, right? Prudence is wisdom. Wisdom to live and to survive, right? So it's a posteriori versus morality, which is a priori, A, and then priori. So a priori means it's independent of experience. A posteriori means it's dependent on experience, right? And then, of course, we know prudence has to do with the phenomenal realm, how to navigate the phenomenal realm, and morality has to do with the noumenal realm. And finally, prudence is, these are just the terminology, right, that you came across. Prudence is hypothetical, meaning prudence is always asking, if I do this, then what, right? It's not just saying, I should do this, like, if I do this, then this, therefore let me do that, because then that, right? That's what it means, hypothetical. If then, you're always thinking in terms of if then. If I do this, then what, right? Whereas morality is categorical. Oh, no matter what. You do it no matter what. There's no if, no nothing. You just, it's the right thing to do, you do it, pure and simple. And then last distinction, prudence gives us counsel, so see, it has to do with wisdom, and morality gives us commands. It's not advice, it's command, right? Okay, so let's read a little bit what he has to say about that. Everybody understand the distinction? So you can see how when we talk about moral relativism, we're really talking about prudence relativism. We all differ on what is the happy thing to do. So what's happy for you is not happy for me. For example, we think moral relativism in terms of, I don't know, let's look at patriarchy, right? Some of us like patriarchy is wrong. Some of us like, no, patriarchy is right, right? And this is not moral relativism. This is just different views on what is good for their happiness and their survival. Some societies think patriarchy is good for survival, protects the woman, whatever, and so forth, protects marriage and so forth. Some societies think, no, this is not good for us, right? And so this is just a distinction with regards to what is right for a society, what is right for their survival, for their thriving. And this is prudence, on the level of prudence, right? Yes. Which one? A posteriori? Yeah. A, and then posteriori. A posteriori, right? Another example, right? We're talking sometimes about gay marriage, right? Some people, it's immoral. Some people, it's moral, right? Again, this is all about the arguments. Look at the arguments they give. It's immoral because it's bad for society. This is all prudence, right? It's bad for society. We're not going to have babies anymore. Our societies will die out, or it's not natural. These are all arguments on the level of prudence, what is good for a society. And then other people say, no, this is good. We need to be able to love who we want. This is important for personal development. These are arguments that are all on the level of instinct, all on the level of what makes a society survive and be happy or not, right? Morality is nothing to do with that. So you cannot make a moral argument for or against gay marriage unless we take it through, or you can make a moral argument for or against patriarchy. This is all has to do with the way we talk about it. It's all about prudence. Are you seeing? And that can be relative to the society. Some societies think, no, gay marriage is good for us. It will make us thrive. Other societies like, no, it will destroy us, right? And based on the society, you have it or not, right? Prudence. Am I making sense? Are you seeing? So for Kant, there's no moral relativism. There are certain things for Kant we all agree on. We all agree killing is a problem, right? Some of us might think it's justified or right in some cases, but it's a problem still. We are hopefully, right? Am I correct that we all agree that it's a problem, right? It would be better not to do it. If we all agree that lying is a problem. Sometimes we have to do it. Sometimes it's justified. Sometimes prudence will tell you lie, right? To save that person. But it still remains problematic. It still remains a moral problem. Are you seeing the distinction? Very important to see that. So now we can understand that moral relativism isn't really moral relativism. It's just relativism of happiness, definitions of happiness, right? Yes, that we have many definitions of happiness, but morality, killing, lying, stealing, everybody agrees that it's problematic. Yes.
So would you say that justice is just happiness?
Yeah, I think you're. I see where. Yeah, because it's like it's how to make a. Now let me think. No, let me not say that. On the one hand, it seems, because it's about happiness, right, of a given people, but today we're going to learn that there is an element in justice which is moral. So we have usually an economic argument. Yeah, everybody should be happy the same way. That's instinct, prudence. But we can also make a moral argument for it. And after class, at the end, we can look. So today, based on what we're going to see today, we're going to see how justice can be both. Depends how you look at it, right? How you define it. Good question, actually. That was a good question. Anybody else? Yes.
This might become clearer later in the class, so it's okay if you don't answer now, but like, I'm just not really comprehending what his morality could possibly be based on. He seems to be knocking out any type of system for morality. So if it's just like kind of up there, either it has to be based on God's word if one believes in God, or a person just decided, but I don't really see what kind of good system he can come up with.
Yes, we haven't done it yet. We're doing it now. We're going to do it immediately. Any other question before we answer Goldstein and eventually Williams? That's it? We're good? All right. Let's see now, what is this good that we are moving towards, right? That part of us is constantly moving towards and yearning for, right? So for this, we need to go to page, where am I? 35. And here we will start where we did last time with the distinction, reason, instinct, happiness, good, and then he's going to develop, right? So the starting point will be the same, we'll hear the same vocabulary, same concepts, and then he's going to go in a very interesting direction in my view. This is where the genius of Kant really is, right, in that distinction. Okay, so he's going to begin. Let me summarize and then we'll read the quote. We didn't read the quote first. Sorry. Let's go quickly back to page 20 and read that quote. So we have a quote. Go to that little number 408. Do you see it? On page 20. We're going to read right there, a few lines down, consequently. Is that where I want to read? Let's see. Wait. Yeah, sure. Let's try there. Everybody there? Consequently? Okay. Consequently, reason unrelentingly commands, right, actions of which the world has perhaps hitherto never provided an example, right? This is the idea that morality does not find any teacher, right, in this world. This world cannot teach us morality, right? Then he continues and says, whose feasibility might well be doubted by one who bases everything upon experience. Yes, right? It's not smart to be moral. It feels like you were saying, there is an oddness to it. Like, how can you not let that person cheat off of you whose father just died? Like, are you crazy? Or how can you not protect your business? Or how can you not, push your way into the subway? Or how can you not, right? It doesn't seem, in the eyes of the phenomenal realm, when you're trying to be moral, you look stupid, basically. Or you look, like you're saying, like a jerk, right? To a certain degree. Either you look stupid or you look like a jerk. So he's saying that, right? The feasibility might well be doubted. The fact that we can do it might well be doubted by one who bases everything upon experience. For example, for instance, even though there might never yet have been a sincere friend, still pure sincerity in friendship is nonetheless required. So we don't see any sincere friends, but we know what sincerity is supposed to look like because we feel betrayed when someone betrays us. How do we know they're betraying us? Everybody's betraying everybody. Where you got the notion, right, about sincerity? Well, from the noumenal, right, for Kant. And he says this, right, prior to all experience, right, because this duty prior to all experience is contained as duty in general, right? So, and then let's go to, let's stay with that. That will be good enough, right? So you can see here he's distinguishing, right, between, basically here he's making the argument that morality cannot be based on experience, right? That it is something, and that it looks silly when you try to apply it within the realm of experience. When it comes to hypothetical, all of this happens over here, right? We're here in the next few pages, especially here on page 26, right? He's distinguishing between hypothetical and categorical. Read 2 lines above 416. Do you see a hypothetical? Everybody there? Okay, a hypothetical imperative, right? This is prudence, which represents the practical necessity of an action as means for the promotion of happiness, is assertoric, right? So this is the prudence. It's about what is the best course of action to preserve that person, that society, their happiness, and so forth, right? And he continues, next paragraph. Yeah, sorry, let me read a little, 4 lines above that first paragraph, and thus the imperative, are you there? The last 4 lines of the first paragraph, and thus the imperative, who is there, wave at me. Okay, and thus the imperative that refers to the choice of means to one's own happiness, the precept of prudence, still remains hypothetical, meaning the action is commanded not absolutely, but as a means to a further purpose. I will do this if I get that, right? So it's hypothetical. I'll do it in the case that it will bring this. That's when I will do it. If it doesn't bring me this, I won't do it, right? Then it says the categorical, right? Finally, there's one imperative which immediately commands a certain conduct without having as its condition any other purpose to be attained by it. This imperative is categorical, right? So that's for that. Okay, back to the good. Okay, so he begins on page 35 and go in the middle of the second paragraph where you have the capital H, hence. Are you there? Wave at me when you get there. Middle of second paragraph, hence. Raise your hand when you're there. So, page 35, middle of second paragraph, hence. One person, can I have 2? Okay, thanks. Okay, so he's going to make again the distinction between reason and instinct, right? He says this, hence there arises the distinction between subjective ends, which rest on incentives, and objective ends, which depend on motives valid for every rational being. So let's analyze this sentence, right? Okay, subjective ends, meaning it's a subjective goal. Where are we? Instinct or reason? Instinct, right? It's a goal for me, subjective, right? When I'm thinking of a goal for me, I'm thinking of happiness, instinct, right? Then he says, okay, distinction with objective end. And this time I'm not thinking of myself. What am I thinking of? What is the orientation of my action? What is calling forth my action in objective ends? Look at the text.
Reason.
No, it doesn't say that. Reason is working, of course, but in what direction is reason working? So the first one, subjective end, for me. Second one, objective end, for who? Look at the text. Yes. Every rational being. Okay, first one, I'm thinking of me. Second one, my action is oriented towards the concept of rational being. So in other words, follow me because this is tricky. The next 15 minutes are going to be really tricky. So wake up and follow me. Right? Subjective ends for me, right? Objective ends, rational being in mind. So in other words, every action I'm doing is oriented towards the concept of rational being. So we have to understand what is rational. What is a rational being? What does it mean to act within mind, the rationality of whatever I'm dealing with, right? It'll clarify as we go on. So he's going to define rational being. Watch this. Last paragraph. Now I say, are you there? Are you with me? Now I say, wave at me if you're there. Yes, okay. Now I say that man, and in general, every rational being, and this is the key here, exists as an end in himself and not merely as a means to be arbitrarily used by this or that will. Can anyone translate the sentence for me? What does it mean to look at a rational being? What does it mean to look at a rational being or to behave towards a rational being in a way that sees them as a rational being? It's a way of behaving, interestingly, not just a way of seeing.
So like not use them for any reason?
Exactly, right? You're treating someone as a rational being when you do not use them for your own purposes, but you see them as an end in themselves, meaning they have value in themselves, not just value for you, right? So this is very important. You treat someone as a rational being, let me say it again, when you see them as having value in themselves and not just value for you. Other way to say it, you treat someone as a rational being when you abstain from using them like you would any common object, right? All objects I can use, discard. Rational being, boom, there is a limit. There's something flashing there. There's a red flag. There is a little bell. I don't know. There is a blinking light. There is a stop sign, right? Telling me, whoa, not this one. This one you shall not use, right? Okay, so let's stop on just the general meaning of that, and then I will draw the implications, which are very profound, actually. Right, but let's stop a little bit and understand this thought first. So what he's saying here is that when you're acting, right, in a moral way, what is guiding your action is a sense of respect for the dignity of that human being, which you cannot use. Let me say it again, right? When you're acting according to objective ends, according to reason, what you're actually doing is you're moving in this world in a way that is deeply protective of the dignity of human beings. You are, in other words, in this world in general, instinct prescribes take whatever you see and use it, right? I see a bottle, I see a class, I see a job, I see maybe a potential partner, I see whatever, something I want to buy. We take. Reason is going to be like, as soon as you're about to take a human being and use them, reason will be like red light, right? Flashing light, right? Little warning sirens, right? Woo, right? This is what's going to happen. Reason is that part in you which hesitates when it's about to use another human being. Reason is that part of you which stops in front of a human being and is sensing at that moment, this is not an object among other objects. This particular object I cannot treat like all the objects in the room. This particular object is a subject, right? Which I must respect and not use, right? That's, by the way, the definition of respect, which comes in the next page, right? Is abstaining from using, right? If you look on page 36, and I'll just read it on the top, right? On the other hand, rational beings are called persons, inasmuch as their nature already marks them out as ends in themselves, something which is not to be used merely as a means, and so forth. And therefore there is imposed, and this is another key sentence, there is imposed a limit on all arbitrary use of such beings, which are thus objects of respect. Very important sentence, key sentence, right? So in other words, reason is that part of you. So basically we're moving in the world and instinct is predominant, right? Most of the time we are on the instinct level trying to make things happen for ourselves, right? But occasionally, as we're grabbing towards a human being, like, oh, I want that too, right? I want her, I want him, right? Something will stop us. We will feel it. We will feel uncomfortable about what we're about to do. At that moment, reason has spoken, right? Reason has made itself sense. Here, you shall go, but no further. That's what reason is saying over and over again. Here you shall go, but no further. Here, there is a limit placed on your happiness. So what reason is doing is basically saying, you can enjoy everything, but here, there is a limit placed on your happiness. It is the limit of the dignity of the other person. I restrict my happiness for the sake of the dignity, personhood of the other person, right? So for example, right, I have the urge to, I don't know, there's so many ways we use each other, right? It's such a common thing. Maybe you can give me some examples, but I did it so many times myself, so I'm trying to look I'm scrolling down all the examples, and I'm trying to pick the one that's the least, revealing about myself. Yes, go ahead.
Like a very unrevealing one. So you really want to go to a certain concert, so you call your friend and say, I miss you so much, we haven't hung out in so long. Do you want to hang out and go to the concert?
And they have a car, right? So they can take you, obviously, right? Okay, that's perfect. I mean, we have no idea how many times we do this. I have so many examples. It's shameful, right? From elementary school on, where you kind of naively do it because that's instinct, right? We're naturally instinctual. And so when you're calling that friend and so forth, is there a little bit of discomfort, hopefully, as you're doing that?
I'm not saying I did that.
No, but let's imagine whoever's doing that, or let's imagine you're tempted to do that. Would you feel a little bit uncomfortable about it, tiny bit?
Probably.
Hopefully, right? So that's reason, right? So you're doing it. If instinct is strong, you're doing it quite often and quite naturally, right? But there should always be a part of you, hopefully, which is like, this is not cool for the other person, right? And that's reason, right? Reason is the part of you which is constantly curbing you, pulling you back at the moment where you're about to transgress on the sanctity of another human being. Are you following? That this is so important. Everybody with me? You had a question, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, like, I know that there's like another notion that even if you respect another person, but you're still, I guess, using your friendship as a means of doing something or getting something out of it. So you're still respecting the other person, but you're still getting something out of them. Sort of like going to a party, like you have party friends, or you have friends that you ran to, or something like that.
So he would say, yeah, so of course, all our relationships are mixed a little bit, right? I mean, I hang out with you because you make me laugh, and at the same time, I like you too. The idea is, would you hang out with them still if they stop making you laugh? If that person stopped going to parties, would they still be your friend? That's the question you should ask yourself. You see what I mean? If they stop being your friend, when the use goes, that means that you were using them, right? So in general, we should have friends that we're still there, even their use is gone, right? That's the sign that you're in a relationship of respect, right? If, however, that person, when they lose the car, when they lose the beauty, right? Some of us, we're dating someone who's super amazing, and then they go through an accident, and now we're like, well, that wasn't, this is not what I signed up for, right? Or they break into some mental illness or something, and now we're like, well, this is not what I was expecting. So when we abandon those who are of no use to us anymore, we can be, this is the confirmation we were only in it for the use, right? If they still are friends, even though they lost all their assets, right? That shows we were in a relationship of respect, right? But it's always mixed, right? Our friends, we love them because they make us laugh, or they have, fun ideas, or intelligent. But if that goes away, are we still friends? That's the test, right? Yeah. Any other questions about that before we get into the profound ramifications? Okay. So, by the way, quick addition. Respect also of ourselves, right? We are also have the duty to respect ourselves, meaning if someone wants to use us, right, we also feel a little uncomfortable and something is stopping us, but often we want to please, or we want to get them, or we have a scenario of happiness, right? And so we let ourselves be used. Also for the purpose, so-called purpose of we're going to be happy, or they're going to be happy, therefore I'm going to be happy, right? So this goes both ways. Not just the other does reason protect, but the reason also protects you. Any rational being includes you, right? Okay, is this good down solid? Because I'm about to go for further. Is this do you need me to say something again or read a quote again before we go further? Okay. Now, here's where things get interesting, in my view. Remember, we're looking, where is the good, right? The good in itself, not the good for me. Good for me is happiness, good in itself. We're trying to find what is the good. I just give you a whole scenario. Can you find where the good is hiding in everything I've said so far? It's hiding in a place, in something that I mentioned. This is where the actual good is hiding. In other words, for Kant, the good is not an abstraction that we follow. It's not some kind of principle in the heavens. It's very concrete. Can anyone tell me, based on everything that we read, where is the good hiding? Yes.
Is it the kingdom of ends?
Yes, but where is that kingdom of ends hiding? Because for Kant, we all thought it was somewhere up there, like Plato. It's not. It's very close to us. The good is among us. Where? On track? Okay. Go ahead. What? Almost. Yes.
I remember Kant criticizing morality because people do it based on their actions, but it's not changing themselves in their heart. So maybe their heart.
Nope. Yes.
The reason?
We know it's reason who is leaning towards the good, but where is the good? Where is this good that is orienting all of our actions? That we're doing all of our actions for the sake of protecting that good. Where is this good hidden that our actions are trying to protect and preserve? And
Dignity?
so that's dignity, but dignity, what is dignity? The good, you're saying just a word. Put it in a sentence.
The good is trying to protect human dignity.
And okay, you're right, but how? How is human dignity the good? Based on what we read. It's like math. Look at this. Someone is not a means, but is an end in itself. Translation. Someone is not good for you, but is
Good on themselves.
good in themselves. That's where it is. The good in itself that we thought was an abstraction is hiding within every single human being in this room, and it is up to us to protect it through our actions towards that person. Let me say that again, because it's actually a really profound moment in Kant that we often miss, right? The good in itself that we've been talking for the past few days, right, is not something enshrined in the heavens. The good in itself is among every single person in this room, is in every single person, every single one of us is good in itself. And it is up to us to protect that dimension of the good in itself in the human being. How? By abstaining from treating them like a good for me. The moment you stop using someone and you abstain from using someone, you are revealing, protecting, preserving the good in itself that they embody. Are you following? This is so beautiful. I know, for me, it's so beautiful, that moment. It's like, wow. It's like, so the good in itself is embodied by a human being, is embodied by each one of us. And it is in danger, of course, of being lost by our actions. As soon as I take one of you and I start to use you, the good in itself, I have destroyed it in you. I have marred it in you. But the moment I protect this aspect of you by never using you, I see you as good in itself. I want to protect that. I don't want to ruin it by using you and seeing you as good for me. I am actually protecting the dimension of the good in itself through my actions. The way we act is what is keeping alive the dimension of the good in itself in the world. And that's what reason wants to do. Reason is out there trying to protect the dimension of the pure good, which is lodged within each one of us. And so the good in itself is embodied, extremely concrete actually, is embodied in a human being. And we have the duty for Kant, or reason is prescribing to us the duty to protect that dimension by never transgressing it through ruthlessly using that person for our own benefit, because then that person is degraded to good for me. You see what we're doing? I can degrade every single one of you like that. I just use you, you go open the door, pick that up, do this, you know, right? And at that moment, I have degraded you to the level of good for me. And your whole dimension, I have not protected. And now you have lost that. You have lost your dignity, right? Which we're saying with the word dignity. But the way I act towards you, if all of a sudden I stop doing that and I see you as not just good for me, but good in itself, at that moment, I am, through my actions of abstaining to control you or use you, I have preserved that dimension. So the good, the dimension of the good in this world depends on us. We can destroy it or we can protect it. Let me say that again, because this is really powerful. The dimension of the good in this world is up to us to destroy it or to protect it through our actions with each other. The way we treat human beings is protecting or destroying the good, the only good that exists in this world, right? And that's where I find Kant so interesting, right? Because he's not an abstract philosopher anymore once you realize that, right? Kant is really saying human beings are the ultimate good. We need to protect this as much as possible, right? And so the other stuff we read before, right, kind of very abstract, doing little calculations or lying, not lying, right? When we realize that for Kant, the only thing that matters is the dignity of every single human being. And now going back to the Nazi scenario, I think we talked about this yesterday. You're still not convinced, I know. But I'm gonna try my chance with the class. What he's saying, if we take this seriously, that every human being is a bearer of the good, that even the Nazi is a bearer of the good, and we have a duty to also respect the Nazi. So as they're coming to our door, is there a way, this is the question, this is the dilemma, is there a way that I can protect the dignity of the people I'm hiding while not destroying the dignity of the Nazi I'm talking to? Can I also address the Nazi as a being worthy of dignity? And if the capacity to do that is what Kant is saying, this is our highest duty. Because of course, it's good to protect the dignity, but can you also protect that dignity? That's the highest goal that's why he's saying it's not good to lie to the Nazi, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it gets petty, where it's like, who cares about the harm that is done? I don't like that part. That part where he's saying, this is not your fault, it's an accident. No, right? There is a problem. But I love the idea that as you're helping one group, you're not despising and destroying the other group, because it is humanity that Kant is saying. Any human, not just your own, any human is worthy of dignity and is a bearer of the good. So you don't just help your own or the people you want to help. You realize even that person over there, the oppressor, is a human being worthy of dignity and who is also a bearer of the good. Even if they're a bad person, they can be a bearer of the good. Are you seeing that? This is so powerful. A human being, in as much as they're a human being, even if they're a bad human being, are still a bearer of the good. They still have value in themselves. Are you following? It's so powerful. Okay, Nasiri and then Williams. Yes. Yeah, they destroy your dignity. Doesn't make them less human, right? They're still a human being, bearer of the good. This is, by the way, we will talk about this when we get to the African philosophy. The idea, the way that Martin Luther King proceeded was very interesting, because he wanted to protect the dignity of his people, but he didn't want to do it in a way that would destroy the dignity of the oppressor. Why? Because he believed deeply, and I think he was right, that if I start to become like them, I have lost the whole battle, I have lost the war, right? If I'm going to try to fight for the good by becoming evil, the war is lost, right? So he realized, as I'm fighting the oppressor, let me not become like them. Let me stay somebody who respects other human beings. So he realized that if I'm going, this is the problem of any war. As soon as you're fighting someone with violence, you're becoming like them, right? And so he believed, if I'm going to really fight this, I have to make sure that I don't fall to their level. And if I start to retaliate with violence and act like them, I'm going to fall to their level. And at that moment, there's nothing left to fight against them. We're both evil, right? There's no good left. Does that answer a little bit your question? I know some of you are going to be doubtful still a little bit. Yes, Ramos. Oh, sorry, Williams first and then Ramos.
Oh, I was going to say that he said that in order, like in the Nazi scenario, right? You are supposed to respect rational beings. If someone is coming to me as a Nazi, do I still respect them as rational, even though what they're trying to do isn't rational anymore? Like, is that the case where do I still tell them the truth, even though this person, I don't see this person as being a rational being?
Yeah. So again, right, that's a good question. That's actually the question the French philosopher poses. He says, well, if they're going to kill me, they're not worthy of my respect anymore. He says that's exactly what you're saying. And Kant is like, well, no. If we want to protect humanity and not just a human being, we need to respect all of humanity. So even the Nazi, who is acting irrationally, right? His reason is dead, right? Still, in their depth of evil, is still a human being which is worthy of respect. Because look, where do we go from there, right? If we take this example, well, then anybody, oh, this person, right, this beggar has lost, I'm not going to help them, they don't deserve my respect, look how low they are. Or this race, right, this type of race, they're not rational. You see, we can take any if we start to decide who is rational, it's going to be a disaster, because I can decide, oh, you're not, that's what we've done in history, right? We've said certain races are not rational, therefore we can kill them and enslave them, right? Or we said women are not rational, therefore we can oppress them and do this. So as soon as we become the judge of who is rational, is the beginning of the end, right? So Kant is saying all of us are worthy of respect, even the Nazi, because this, in a way, you are protecting their good, and you can, that Levinas will say this later, you can even awaken it perhaps through that action, right?
So yeah, that's what I kind of thought. The goal is to be awakened.
There's no goal for Kant, right? You do the right thing because it's the right thing, right? But Levinas actually is going to go in the direction, if you read him carefully, of saying that when I act like this, something in that Nazi can awaken that wasn't there. Which is, by the way, also Christianity. Yes, it's of Christianity, right? So this is, but for Kant, he's saying it cannot matter the result. I do it because it's a human being. It is a bearer of the good in itself, right? And my duty is to respect them. And then, of course, we have to then go into prudence and figure out, how am I going to do this, right? So Kant is not saying be a stupid idiot and stand there and, let them crucify you. No, you can be smart about it. But maybe you can also be moral. This is where I think we are not creative enough. We say, oh, if I don't lie, this and this. We think there's either I lie or I don't lie. There are thousands of scenarios you can come up with, right, in order to get out of this situation. This is where you have to go back to the prudence. How do I get smart about this? How do I do this in a way that I know now, my reason has told me I have to respect them, that I'm hiding, and I have to respect the Nazi. You know this is the right thing to do. Now you got to go to the level of prudence and calculate, how am I going to do this and save everybody's life, right? That's that's when you get creative, right? So that I think, but the moral imperative cannot depend on what can or cannot be done. You see what I mean? It's higher. If it cannot, if you start to think, oh, it cannot be done, therefore I shouldn't do it. No, you should still do it. Even if it cannot be done, you should try, right? And then see what happens, right? So that's the thing is, I think for the Nazi scenario, I would say, don't tone down the moral ideal because the situation is dire. Keep it and then get smart and figure out a way to do it so you can preserve everybody's dignity, right? I'm sure you have a question.
It's a little circular, but like, so the Nazi example. So if you say, you're saying to be creative, but let's say you try to be creative and they're still like, okay, well, do you have anyone hiding there? And they're just asking, there's no other way. So if you don't lie, how is that not infringing on the people who are hiding's dignity? That's like, then their dignity is being kind of trampled on because now they're about to be killed. And also you promise to keep them safe. So that's like another slight on their dignity. And isn't it kind of using them as an end? Because let's say I'm the one like that has to make a decision. In my head, I'm like, 1 second, well, morality is all not using people as ends, so I'm not going to lie, so therefore they're going to be killed. So I'm kind of using them as an end in my morality of not using people as an end.
You have like 5 questions in your question.
As long as you understand where I'm going.
And I didn't sleep good, so I don't know. But I picked one of them. We have to remember, morality is always an ideal. Let's just accept that. It's an ideal. It's the stars that we're shooting for, right? And go back to that proverb we talked about yesterday. It is an ideal. It is not something that is easy and feasible. Kant acknowledges that. Morality is not easily feasible. He even says it's not feasible, right? I think it is feasible, but not easily. So once we accept that, then we have to get smart and prudent about how to make it work, right? But morality necessarily is going to be beyond what is possible because morality is a different kingdom, right? And this kingdom is the kingdom of beasts and savages eating the wolves, right? So morality is always going to be hovering up there and be like, how do I do this, right? That's the challenge. I think one of you in your essay wrote, Kant is so, living like Kant is so boring. How is that? But that was you. How is it boring to have constantly this pure ideal that you have to constantly find creative ways to bring into the world? And do you see what I'm saying? That's really interesting for me, at least. I'm excited. Like it's like, okay, it's like math, right? You have like the problem, and then you have to like put it all together. How? You have to be imaginative. So it's the same thing. But we should not tone down. Let's not be afraid of keeping the ideal where it is, right? It's okay if we can't reach it, but let's not dilute it. Let's not bring it down just because it's so hard to do. Let's keep it there, and then let's sit back and see how can we now use our smart instinct, right? The smart hypothetical prudence, and wisely make it happen. That's the challenge we're given. If it was feasible, there's no challenge. We're robots. Boom, 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 right? Just go assembly line. This is not robotic, right? Because it's something beyond us that we have to find a way to bring into this world and navigate into this world with. And that's the challenge. Isabel, are you repentant of this?
I'm not really sure.
Okay, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because I know that, even though we believe that we can move towards the good, we also said that we're inherently wolves. And so through all this chaos and the fighting that we constantly do every single day, like how does he bring back dignity on a global scale if we're constantly taking it away from everybody?
Well, we're not. Part of us wants to protect it, right? Remember, part of us wants to protect the good, wants to move towards the good, right? So part of us is naturally respectful, right? And part of us isn't, right? So there is a part of, so this is how we can become better for Kant, because we already are. We just have to cultivate that and develop that. That's why he's teaching us this is what reason sounds like. Reason is never, the only thing that is guiding you is the dignity of the other person, or your dignity. That's the guide. And you already have it inherently, you already know and feel and sense this. So it's not, it's possible. The moral law is possible because it's lodged within us, right? If it was something completely like, what the hell is this, right? But no, we carry it within us, and therefore there is a certain degree of naturalness and natural desire to do it. And that's how he has hope that we can bring even the moral law lodged in the Nazis' dark heart, right? And maybe there's a way to appeal to that, right? And we're not really digging those possibilities, I think. We're immediately saying, there's no hope for this, they're pure evil. Nobody's pure evil. You can always find ways. Even Schindler and Schindler's List, right? Stupid businessman, completely selfish. Something was moved, right? And you see stories like that. I mean, it's a bad story, The Pianist. Do you remember? Watch it, please. It's about a Nazi officer who becomes really impressed by a Jew he's supposed to kill because he's an amazing pianist, right? Not well. It's discussed. It's not a great example, but you can see how even that officer, right, who is moved to protect. I think, did anyone see The Pianist? Who saw that movie? Does he protect him? I think he does. I can't remember. Barely.
Yeah.
Yeah. He tries to protect.
barely survive.
Exactly. So there, even that heart of the Nazi is moved at seeing the way this man is playing the piano, and it's like something shifts within him. The brutality is softened, and he's able to help it. So this is what Kant is saying. There is always hope. A human being is never pure evil. There is always, you can always appeal to their goodness, or you can always, and you should always respect their goodness, right? And then you find ways to smartly get the thing done, right? So that's the challenge, right? Kant is giving us a challenge. He's not saying, here's what you should do, and it's A to Z. No, he's saying, here's the challenge. Now see how you can creatively bring this kingdom into the world. That's what it is. It's bringing another kingdom into this world. That's what he's saying. Does that make sense? Any other questions? This is really, really fascinating, for me at least. And by the way, when we study Levinas, I'm going to point back to this, because this is, Levinas is drawing from Kant, and you're going to see connections. Yes, Avila.
Well, everyone has about serial killer. How
What about what?
serial killer?
Same thing, right? For Kant. And actually, I'll give you an example. Two examples. I have a friend who is a psychiatric nurse, right? She's working with total lunatics. I mean, and you think they're gone, right? And she told me that she noticed that every one of her patients, there was always a very small point where she could reach of sanity, right? And she noticed this working over the years, that patients were never completely gone. There was always a point of sanity with which she could negotiate to get them through the treatment, right? So that's one example. Second example is I met such a serial killer, for real, for a friend of a friend. I'm not personally acquainted, but I saw him and they told me about him. This guy, he chopped up his father when he was a kid. Like literally, he took an accident with his, it's crazy, right? And he felt nothing. Like he tells, right, he's married now with kids and everything, like he has a normal life. And then this same guy, right, becomes a Christian. Something shifts, right? So it's not necessarily the Christianity, but something moves, meaning that he was a serial killer and something was able to reach him, right? In this case, it was his faith. And of course, he still has the urge. He tells us he still has, for him, it's still natural. It's still okay to do that. He could still go chop someone up, feel nothing. But something deeper than his feelings shifted. And it's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to live like that. So even the serial killer, it is known from what I've noticed, from what I've observed, there's still that point, very small, right? That can be touched. And that's what Kant is talking about. No one is ever completely gone, in as much as you're a human being, even if you're completely gone, right? Excellent. Any other questions? We have 4 minutes. Why are you packing up? Any other questions? Good. This is really, really good stuff. Okay, next time, we're going to read about freedom, morality and freedom. It's going to be very interesting. So hopefully you're starting, not to go back to justice, just to finish with that. That was your question. is justice moral? Is it on the level of morality, or is it on the level of prudence? What do you guys think now that you know what you know? And you have to define justice in order to answer that question. How would you define justice in order for it to be a moral thing and not just a prudent thing? Yes.
It would have to be all about teaching and like teaching people the proper way, or like teaching people a higher way. If justice is anything to do with the current justice system, like prison and punishment retribution, then it's completely prudence and it's not morality.
Okay, very good.
According to Kant.
If you're fighting for just economic welfare, for Kant it's not enough. You have to fight for dignity, right? If the economic welfare, this is a prudent thing. Let's make people happy, everybody. If they're happy, we're happy. But when you're seeing in a given societies, these people do not have dignity, then you're on the moral plane. You're fighting for dignity, and at that moment, it is universal. Everybody will agree with you, or feel uncomfortable. So in that sense, I think so. It depends how you define justice, and so in that sense, justice would be a moral dilemma, right? Yeah.
Can I ask something? Did we ever go over the second imperative thing?
That's the second imperative.
Oh. Alright.
The one about respect. To never see anyone as a means but as an end.
Oh.
That's the formulation of the second categorical imperative. That's a good question. Okay, good. All right, so please read the last part. You can also read the last little chapter on lying. It's interesting if you want to hate Kant a bit. It's the best place to go. And we'll talk about freedom next time. Is it recording?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.